Hello YouTube, it is Road to Recovery, and this is another Stories of a Porn Addict. Today we're going to be discussing erectile dysfunction. The purpose of this series is I get to tell my stories, all the crazy things that had happened in my porn addiction life, and I hope this encourages you to be able to share yours. By sharing our stories, it empowers us to be able to go into this recovery space and really take advantage of being able to share, have the discipline and the courage necessary to really engage this recovery process. It only helps you. So today I was going to discuss erectile dysfunction and how it affected me. Now, it didn't affect me as much as I've heard it affects other people. Um, it's a very touchy subject, no pun intended, but it is something that people don't feel very comfortable talking about because it's physicality. It's something that we imbue a lot of power into our sexual function, and when it doesn't work out the way we intended to, there's a humiliation hit that really happens as a part of that. There's lots of other people in this recovery space who it's their number one topic. Like they want to talk about it because that was the moment that they realized that there was a problem. And certainly, I don't want to take anything away from that. For me, it was a little bit more subtle because I had a balance of other issues that were impacting me more. It's not that I didn't have ED problems, but it wasn't a huge part of the problem that was my porn addiction. So anyway, I wanted to kind of talk. I might have to go back into my teenage years, but I think it's the best way to start. As you know, I'm an older man. I didn't have digital pornography when I was a teenager. That didn't happen until I was in my 20s. So by the time I was in my late teens, had a pretty active sexual life, and I had several girlfriends that I was interacting with sexually, and for the most part, those sexual relationships were normal. There's a few times where I may have had performance issues, but I don't feel that it was a consequence of the pornography. It was probably a consequence of other mitigating factors. Like I didn't have a car for a while, so I was like literally getting on my bicycle and having to bike everywhere. So fatigue played a part in it. Um, but I think there was one particular exchange where um, I was dating this girl who I could only describe as being a very, very attractive Italian woman. And it was her first time, and I had gone over to her house, and I was brimming with anticipation. Like I really found this person attractive, and we did some making out, and I won't get into the details here, but one thing led to another, and it was time to perform. And it's kind of funny that for a little while things were cooperating, and she was the one that was a little, a little reluctant. I don't know, blah blah. And then she, um, after a while, we kind of calmed down, and she's like, you know what? Yes. I was like, damn it. So I ran out to my car, got a condom, came on back in, and things just weren't working. And I think earlier that day, you have to. This is a while ago. Earlier that day, I had done a lot of rubbing it out to some magazines in anticipation, like I was so turned on about, you know, the prospects of having sex with this person that I think I'd got a little early action in. And when it came to performance, it was sad, sad, sad. I could see this lovely, beautiful woman in front of me who was very much in the mood, and things just weren't cooperating down there. And that was the first time I'd ever experienced that. But I was taken aback, and I didn't understand what was going on inside of my mind because I all the factors were lined up. This is exactly what I had wanted, but the body was not cooperating. And as an adult now that I can look back on it, is I can say that it's body, of course, but it's very much the mind. I had satiated myself so much sexually that um, sometimes the mind and body, they just fail to cooperate at that point, and I just couldn't get it up anymore. And it was a very bizarre state because I had the excitement going on, like I wanted this, but things just weren't happening. So unfortunately, that wasn't the last time, but that was very sad. That was a very sad state because I really wanted that experience. I wanted to share that experience, but it just couldn't happen, and I wasn't the one, and that led to a breakup. We broke up after that, um, and I think she took it upon herself that maybe I didn't want her, but the reality was is that I just at that particular point in time just couldn't work. Um, so I can't recall any of my other um, dating relationships after that being impacted by ED, which is why I say it wasn't that big of a deal in my life. I only had that one incident when I was still dating, and then when I got married, you know, the porn use became part of my daily routine. It was absolutely part of my daily routine. And there were a few times where I had interactions with my wife where, I was anticipating, like I wanted to have sex, but the body just was not cooperating. And unfortunately, what that meant for me is that I had to go through lots of activity in order to even get stimulated, with lots of foreplay and stuff like that. Again, I won't get into details here, but it took a while. It took a lot of coaxing for something that should be automatic for a fairly young guy like I was. And granted, I had stresses in my life and stuff like that, but I really do chalk that one up. Like that was clearly due to the pornographic use that was going on. Um, I think sometimes like when we were trying to have our first child, you know, I was I was hitting the porn a lot back then. I was going at it all the time. And I remember at one point I even took a little bit of a break from it because I was really worried that we wanted to have a child, and the ability not to conceive because she had issues herself, but I was worried that there was stuff on my plate, like things that I was doing. And this is even before, your brain on porn and the discovery of erectile dysfunction and the effect it has from, frequent pornography use. This is before any of that had come about. Um, so I didn't have that sort of knowledge in my mind, but I knew something was wrong. And so I took a little bit of a break from my pornography use. And then sure enough, she was able to, conceive. And I was able to perform better. That was like a it was like a peak of like, okay, this is what happens when things go right. And on reflection, it's like after we had our first child, I went immediately back to the porn use. I went immediately back. I could feel the draw, like I wanted to be constantly satiated, and I couldn't stop. And then, sure enough, like further on, there were other times that with my wife, I just couldn't perform, just could not perform, no matter how much I tried. And I would apologize to her. It's like, "Yeah, sweetie, I'm just not feeling up to it today, blah blah blah." But the reality was, is I think some of that fatigue was literally um, I had hit the endorphin max overload. Like, I had exhausted myself to the point of my body and mind just not being able to become stimulated anymore. And what that feels like is that, you become aware of the reality that all the things are correct. It's like you've got a beautiful person in front of you. The the smells, the everything is right, like everything is working in the favor to where you should be aroused, but the body's not cooperating. And then you start to realize at that moment when it happens that, something's not right within you. Like there is a problem going on here that has nothing to do with your external stimuli. It's all about what's going on in the recesses of your mind, like what you've done to yourself. And I think this is one of the things I was talking recently on Twitter about some of the people that kind of spoke in this space that, that the focus was really on erectile dysfunction and how it has its own, enclave because it's the area where a lot of men kind of realize that something's not right with me. And certainly I've had a piece of that. Like I've experienced that in my life. Um, and just to conclude on this video and the story is, despite all that happening, right? And I made small changes when I needed to, but despite all that happening, I still leaned into my addiction. I didn't let it stop me. And as I've said before in other media, whether it's on Twitter or in some of my videos, that I think part of me started favoring the pornography and the ability to have that sexual release anytime I wanted to over real sex. Like that happened. I had conditioned myself into wanting a screen over an actual person. And it's difficult, like looking into a camera here and talking about that and saying that to kind of recognize that that's what had happened. Your brain doesn't think that way. Like, you don't think that, oh, why did I pick A over B? But that's what happened. I conditioned myself into wanting to have a screen over a partner. Um, that affects not only you, it affects your partner. There's a downhill action. In retrospect, I can say I lost an early girlfriend because of that. And, my wife sticks with me, and I think she has especially now, she has an understanding of the struggle that I was going through. But, I know that there's a part of her personality that's damaged because of my actions as well. Had the tables been turned, right, and you had a loved one saying that, I prefer I prefer looking at screens over you. It's terrible, man. It's terrible. And that's the message you send, whether you intend to say that or not, but that's the message that's being sent. So I think, understanding that in the context of a erectile dysfunction, you're not the only person who's getting hurt by the porn. Your partner is most certainly being hurt by these consequences as well. And it gets far beyond sex. It gets far beyond sex. Sex is just the medium we have for, intimate relationships, right? And for people that just treat sex as sex alone, you're missing the best part. There's the intimacy side of things, and that's all part of the relationship. And if we just keep on treating sex as just a product of getting off, and then, not only is the sex act disposable, but the person is disposable. You kill a part of yourself and the other person as well. So anyway, I'll stop lecturing about that. I hope you found this as informative. I'll go ahead and say if you haven't had a chance to already, please like, share, and subscribe this video. Check out some of my other videos on this series. There's a lot of topics related to my own porn addiction. I encourage you to listen to those. And when and if you feel empowered by listening to these videos, that you actively seek either a recovery group, a therapist, or another person, and kind of lean into this, tell your story. And I think through you telling these stories, you're going to find some help and some recovery inside of the story itself. There's always a nugget of truth that you'll be able to reflect on, be able to grow and share, and in the process, become a healthier human being. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Take care.